So my next job on my Easter list is I need to make a bag for my niece as part of her Christmas gift, her Easter gift. I made these cute little bags last year for the kids, so I want to make one for her this year. So I've gone and printed off the pattern. I'll link it in the comments below. So I need to cut 4 of the main bag from the calico, 2 of the bunny ears from the calico, and then the kids have picked this as the ear fabric. So I need two bunny ears of that. So we'll get those cut out. Trying to make the most of this calico without cutting into it too much. So that's the right width there. So I could use, maybe if I go like that, let's fold it over like that, and then fold this over. Let's get that nice and flat. So I got my mat out and my ruler. I was going to rotary cutter it, but I'm actually wondering now whether I just pin that on and go old school with a pair of scissors. Might be easier to get through all 4 and not have to worry quite so much about the pieces shifting. It's all nice and flat. So let's grab some scissors. So I'm currently working my fold up table. That's my pegboard just in front of me. Okay, and just down around this side, and that cuts those folds off. 1, 2, 3, 4. So now I also need 2 bunny ears of the calico. That cut section of it the same. Okay. And off. So just test. It's actually not. It's not exactly to gauge with the pattern, so it's out by 1/8 an inch, but that's fine. It's just a little gift bag. It's not critical that the size be bang on. I'm just going to do the same. I'm just going to pin that in place. And just before everyone gets horrified at me cutting through the paper as well as the fabric with my fabric scissors, these are like my backup ones. They're not my really good scissors, so it's okay if they get a little bit of paper on them. So that's 2 calico ears, and now we need 2 pink ears. So this really pretty fabric has been in my stash for ages, since I made a table runner for a friend with this one. And I haven't used it a lot, but I still like to try and get the most out of my fabric. So that just fits. Okay, I might need to cut these ones individually because I can just fit an ear there, but if I fold it in half, I'm not going to quite. No, I might just, maybe just, okay. So maybe I go under like that. Yeah, so that's, hang on, there we go. Look at that. Okay, the same thing again. I'm actually just going to leave it directly next to that calico on there, just to keep it all together and to make sure everything is nice and neat and as exact as I can get it. I'm just worried, like if I clip a little bit off a corner or something, if I'd unpatched the calico, then they wouldn't quite match. Whereas if I leave it together, if I happen to accidentally clip any off, all 4 pieces will be the same. I'll just have to use a bit bigger seam allowance. I'll just have to watch it when I'm sewing it. Didn't think to check that bit, did I? Okay, so that's everything cut. Unpin everything. Okay, bunny ears. 1 ear, 2 ears. 1 ear, 2 ears. And 4 bags. 1, 2, 3, 4. One's the lining, one's the outside. So what I'm going to do first, I'm going to sew these, clip and turn them in the right way, press them, top stitch them, and then I can tack them in here so that when I join the front and the back together, they will, or the inside and the outside I should say, they'll get sandwiched in there. So I'll join inside and outside at the top with those sandwiched, and then I'll do the sides. So I'll clear this off, grab the sewing machine, and we can get started. So in here is my threads. So this box is actually my great-grandmother's, which is really cool. I love it. I've loved it since I was a kid, so I was very excited when my nan gave it to me when she downsized. So I've got that one, but that just looks like a little bit too bright. It doesn't quite blend into that pink, but I did find this dusty one, which at first didn't look great, but then when I put it against it, it actually blends in with those paler flowers. So I actually think I'm going to go with that for my thread for sewing and top stitching. I think that will work best. So let's get the machine threaded. And of course my recording died halfway through sewing these ears, but I've just sewn them around at 3/8 of an inch, trimmed off the top and clipped the curves, turning them inside out. The points were a little bit tricky to get out, so I've got my trusty fabric marker here, mainly because it was the closest thing that was pointy-ish but not super sharp. And I'm just going to use that to turn it the right side out, and they've turned out super cute. So with those turned out, then I'm just going to top stitch them really quickly around the outside to keep them nice and flat, and then I'm going to add them into my bag. So I'm being very technical. I just folded the front in half and then put one on the front, one on the back, pinned them in place. I didn't measure, which I probably should have, but you know, I'm all about winging it. So I got those in place, added the top layer, and then sewed across the top there to sandwich them together. And then I just repeated for the other two pieces, just sewed across the top, obviously with no ears to sandwich. And then I just lay them out on the table. I kind of just finger pressed those seams open, and then I've just lined up the two seams across the top and just done 2 pins, one either side. I haven't pinned the rest of it. I'm just going to kind of hold that together as I go around. So I just started at 1 pin, forgot which side was the inside and the outside to work out where my gap was. Had a little check of the ears there. I just went around the outside. When it came down to the opening, I just tucked the ears in. When it came down to the opening, I just do a little 90 degrees turn down into the hem, and just helps everything tuck in nice and neatly when I turn it right side in. And so then just finished it up, did the same on the second side of that opening, clipped the corners to make it sit nice and flat, and then it was quite the adventure to wriggle it out. I was a little bit optimistic with the size of the opening gap that I left. But in the end, with a little bit of wriggling and persuading, I managed to get the ears out and turn it right side in, only to discover I'd misjudged where the opening was, and it was actually on the outside, not the inside. When I'm doing a quick bag like this, I'll often just machine stitch that lining closed really close to the edge when it's on the lining. But, you know, being the outside, I did consider turning it back in, but it was just too much work. So I just top stitched the top of it around, just nice and neat. It was about 1/4 of an inch just to give it a nice neat finish. And then I grabbed my hand sewing needles out to stitch that opening closed, just pulled a bit straight out of my machine, super fancy. And just did a basic ladder stitch which closed it. There were a couple of little visible marks where I started and finished that stitching, but in the end it was fine. I don't think a 9-year-old is going to be critiquing my sewing quite that closely that I need to worry about a little bit of pink thread showing. And so on the original pattern, it actually had a drawstring closure, but I didn't have a drawstring for this one. So what I actually decided to do was I pulled out my haberdashery box and I had a bit of a pick through. I was going to try some ribbon, but I found some webbing instead, and I've decided I'm going to add a little hanging loop to it, or a little carry handle, I guess. Trying to work out where to put it, and I ended up putting it on the side. I just used a little square of the pink fabric to enclose the ends of it and to give it a really nice finish. Trimmed a dirty bit off the end of the webbing and then just basically winged it when it came to folding it all into place to create the little enclosure for the end. And so I just tidied it all up and then folded it in place, pinned it onto the bag using the seams as a guide, corner to corner, and then just top stitched it in place as well.
done. It turned out super cute. I just grabbed a little chocolate rabbit to fit inside the bag, and then I also added a little craft kit that I'd picked up at Kmart to finish up the present, even though it didn't quite fit in the bag. Thanks for joining me for today's video, and I'll see you tomorrow.